Welcome to another tutorial. This one is on a 1990 Honda Accord 2.2 liter, and we'll be doing the timing belt. The timing belt on this engine is interference, so if you get it wrong, you can end up bending your valves. So when you start any procedure, you need to go ahead and look up the service information. We use All Data Repair, so we're going to select vehicle. We're going to use a 1990 Honda Accord. It's a 2.2 liter. Then we're going to go to engine again, and then we're going to scroll down until we find timing belt. This gives you the components and all those. We want to find the timing belt. It's going to give us our repair information and the parts and labor. So here's the belt. So you look at parts and labor, it's right here. You click on timing belt. This gives you your times. It's 3.7 hours. You get a half hour for the air conditioning, and you're also going to get a half hour for the water pump. Timing belt's $48 just for the belt. Prices definitely vary, and then you're also going to want to replace the water pump and the tensioner as well. You never just replace the belt, you always have to replace the tensioner. And we're going to go up to, there's service and repair, here's removal and installation. Here's a breakdown of what you're going to see. Now, this has a balance shaft right here that you're going to have to align. The engine that we use at the Career Center does not have a balance shaft, but if it does, it's one more step. You have to adjust your balance shaft to the proper position and pin it before you put that belt on, but we don't have that. So this shows you disassembly, which is really good if it fits your motor, which ours doesn't. As you can see here, it shows that if you find the flywheel, it'll tell you where top dead center is. That does not work on our engine, and I will show you that later. This is where the balance shaft gets pinned, but we don't have a balance shaft, so things are a little bit different with our motor. But nevertheless, things you got to watch out for. This crankshaft pulley right here is torqued down to 159 foot-pounds. So a regular, if you have not a really good half-inch impact gun, it's not going to take it off. I've heard of some people using the starter to take it off and just cranking the motor to break the bolt loose. I would not recommend that. I would get a good impact gun, borrow one from somebody. That way that you can just zap it off. If you try and use a breaker bar, it's very hard to hold that motor, and you could run the risk of breaking the pulley or however you try and stop the motor from spinning. So a big impact gun is what you're going to want to use. So after you've gone ahead and read the disassembly and reassembly procedure of it, then you can go on. So looking at the bottom of the engine, the bottom pulley is your crankshaft pulley. Above that is your tensioner with a spring attached. Next to that is your water pump pulley, and then at the very top that you can't see is your camshaft pulley. So the left side of the belt is your non-tensioned side, so that's the side you need to get really tight. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen up this tensioner. Takes a 12mm bolt, and we'll loosen it a few threads. Now I'm going to grab a pair of needle nose. I'm going to take this spring off. Once the spring comes off, it's going to give you a lot of slack inside that tensioner, and it'll allow you to pull the belt off easily. If you're going to replace the tensioner, now you can just back the bolt out and go ahead and replace it. For the belt inspection, you can see that the back side you can see quite a bit of wear. There's the cogs there which show wear, but what you really need to do is turn it like this, and they should be round. If they get a flat spot on the back of them, that means that they are worn down. So looking at the crankshaft pulley here, there's an index mark on this cog that needs to line up with this arrow on the case right here. And you can see that they're a little bit off right now. You should set that before you pull your belt off. And we were very close, so I'm just going to go ahead and get a wrench on this. I'm going to turn it back until those two line up. And that's going to give us top dead center on cylinder number 1. On the camshaft, there's a mark on the left and right, which should be basically even with the top of the head. Right here, there's where my finger's at, it says top, and then there's also another line down here at the bottom, which is the one that you're going to line up with this plastic indicator. So I cleaned it off. There is an indicator mark that needs to line up with that cam, and it's just a little bit off as well, so we're going to go ahead and move this camshaft until those two line up. Okay, from the top, this is a belt installation. I'm going to slip it down through, and I'm going to put it over top of the middle engine mount. And you're going to start by putting it on the crankshaft and then the camshaft, so you can set that non-tension side nice and tight. If you have to move the cam or crank a little bit, you can. Then you're going to slip it over the water pump and over the tensioner. Now I'm going to check the non-tension side. It's fairly tight, and when we rotate the two, we'll get it tighter. So I'm going to take my needle nose and stretch that spring of the tensioner to set that tension side, and then I can go ahead and tension the bolt up a little bit. So now we'll take a look at the bottom of the engine. Same thing, I'm going to line it up on the crankshaft first. I'm going to slip it over the camshaft and make sure that those two line up. Sometimes your belt will slip off the crank, so you got to kind of keep putting it back in place. Then I'll put it over the water pump, and finally I'll put it on the tensioner. Once you get it on the tensioner, then you can go ahead and grab your needle nose and stretch that spring back out. Now you're going to watch the tensioner move and put the tension on the belt. Now we'll just tighten it up a little bit, and we'll end up rotating the cam and crank in order to get more tension on that left side of the belt. So as you can see, it needs to be a little bit tighter. So the tensioner's loose right now, the spring's attached. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a wrench on the camshaft and a socket on the crank, and I'm going to turn the two away from each other. You can see it pull that tensioner up right there. That's exactly what we want. Now I just got to remember to tighten that tensioner back up. Now you need to rotate the engine twice, counterclockwise, and then you're going to recheck your crankshaft and your camshaft timing marks to ensure that the engine is in fact in time. If it is even one notch off, the engine won't start. If you get it a few notches off, then that's when you can have problems. You can see that I'm all lined up there. Here's the top part of the motor as I'm rotating it, and you're going to see the cam come back around, and the timing mark is going to line up with that plastic indicator. It's almost there right now. So now that both the cam and crank are in time, I'm going to tighten that belt up just a little bit more. And there's a couple ways to do it. You can either put your hand on the top of the pulley, the cam pulley, and turn the crankshaft away from it, and that'll add some tension to it. But since this engine's got so many miles and it's so easy to turn over, I'm going to put a wrench on the cam and a socket on the bottom crankshaft pulley, and I'm going to turn the two away from each other. Once I get a lot of tension on it, as you can see, it's starting to tension up really good. I'm going to pull up on that tensioner just a little bit and then tighten the bolt. If I were to replace a tensioner, it would just take the slack out for me, but this is just used for educational purposes. So now that everything's tight, all we have left to do is button it back up, put your shields on, put your harmonic balancer on, and your valve cover. For more videos, please visit us at bccautomotive.org.